It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And welcome into Judd's Hockey Show. We're doing a post-game edition. Wild lose 4-3 in Pittsburgh tonight. It's Judd, it's AJ Fredrickson. Plenty to discuss in this episode. Wild falls behind 3-0 in Pittsburgh, a place they traditionally don't play well. Come back and ties it up at 3, and then loses on a third period goal by the Penguins. AJ, let's start with this, though. And we were talking about this briefly before we fired up the microphones. And that is it's not the penalty kill per se, but now it's the Wild's inability, with all the things they've done pretty well under John Hynes, their inability to stay out of the penalty box remains a problem. The stat tonight is the Wild 3 power plays, no conversions. Mm-hmm. The Penguins 5 power plays, 2 conversions. They've got to find some discipline here. I mean, I'm sorry, but, and they talked about this on the telecast, you know, the holding the stick penalties like Hartman took in the offensive zone, inexcusable, can't happen. Don't blame the refs. That's your fault. That to me is one of the main storylines of things that has to be cleaned up, because this team is so badly in need of 2 points as often as they can get them.
Yeah, the lack of discipline for some of these games that we're seeing is just, it's inexcusable. You can't have a holding the stick penalty there on Hartman. And on the other side, I do want to say that the interference call against Hartman, where he put his nose, I guess, in the wrong place at the wrong time, that's a discussion, for a different point. But this is now 12 consecutive games that the Wild have had more penalty kills than power plays. Mm-hmm. That's unacceptable in the NHL. You cannot expect to win hockey games consistently if you're going to the box more than you're having the man advantage. And especially when you're going to the box a lot more against a power play tonight. And I know it wasn't the best to start the season, but has Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Jake Gensel, Erik Karlsson, Rickard Rakell. It's so weird that they think that and they probably don't think, but it's weird that they go to the boxes often and they still are able to fight back. And then immediately 12 seconds later, Kirill takes a penalty and, hey, power play goal for the Penguins, eventual game winner, Sidney Crosby. Who would have thunk that? Real kick in the teeth. It feels like you go down 3-0, you battle back, and all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, you just put yourself behind the 8 ball once again. So to see this team keep battling at times, and maybe they just need to start earlier, I think is, once again, the thing that I have been a broken record about is, if you play a full 60-minute game, you probably don't run into these situations where you're pulling the goalie with 2 minutes to go and you need your first extra attacker goal of the season. Right. So, yeah, the trips to the penalty box need to be an issue. I know John Hynes did talk about it prior to the game today.
Oh, yeah.
But, the words are only, they only carry so much weight. I want to see action.
Yeah, and I just want to see, that's the discipline thing that still remains a problem. And the problem, too, is this. In any sport, if you become a team that takes penalties, you're going to get called for more. Officials are looking for them, fair or not. Because I'm with you. The Hartman interference call was a weird, I didn't see that part. He got hit in the face. And that could have been obviously potentially a 4-minute power play. But that being said, I do think there comes a point in time where the officials are starting to look for what you're doing when you are taking penalties that aren't disciplined, that are dumb, unnecessary. And, when you started the season, your penalty kill was a complete mess. You need to find ways. And I don't know if it's what the remedy is. I don't know what they can do, but they need to find ways to stay out of the box. Let's talk about Kirill Kaprizov's game, because I actually think we saw some really good Kirill-like things. First of all, those moves, he didn't score on it, but those moves in the slot were stupid. That's the Kirill that I long to see, and we've talked about this, more of. He and Ek helped set up the Middleton goal, right, which went to Boldy eventually, but they both won. They both won their portion of a board battle, which would have been to the right of where Boldy was standing. And I thought Kaprizov, I definitely don't see the skating all the time. And we've talked about if he's still hurt from the hit he took against the Jets last season, or what might be the case. But I feel like we're inching closer, and I feel like there were some very Kirill-like things and opportunities tonight that are at least getting us closer. Because yes, I'm with Victoria there. The finishing touch is still not there, but we're seeing things that are a lot closer age to what we're used to seeing, as opposed to a guy who, for him, was floundering about a month and a half ago. I think that's a fair word to use.
Yes, and I want to say that I do understand maybe the angst and the frustration that some fans feel, because you've grown accustomed now for however long it was for the Minnesota Wild to not have that superstar type of player. You got exposed to that. You took a drink out of the cup. It's hard to go back, you know?
Yep.
But you have to realize that he is playing not at 100%. And the flashes that we saw tonight were encouraging. And like you said, we're like a week removed from us talking about this a little bit more in depth, but the handles that he had walking around two guys, and that goes back to your point last week, which was the kind of the contortionist body movements that we haven't really seen. That was what I want to see. Those movements is very encouraging. And it's one of those where it's like you miss out so close on a highlight reel goal that you're going to watch to put yourself to bed for the next 3 months. But
what a stupid move.
I mean,
how did he do it? He went between his legs behind. I mean, I don't even know what he, like, I rewound it and watched it twice, and I still don't know exactly how he did it, but that was just ridiculous.
Yeah. And I mean, we saw some other times as well of, for anybody saying he doesn't, like, he's lost that like fire in him, look at the last 3 minutes of that game. He is skating his butt off to track down Sidney Crosby to stop a net goal.
I'm glad
he didn't just track him down. He muscled him off the puck. And I understand Sid the kid is now Sid the adult and maybe Sid the grandpa, but it's still Sidney Crosby.
That's two strong dudes though.
Yes, absolutely.
Like Crosby's strong.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So encouraging stuff. Still frustrating at times. The turnovers are still, I think, a bit of an issue. The number one rule that was preached to me and, you know, my Pee-wee and Bantam teams growing up was, when you enter the blue line, what's the one thing you never do? Deke. And I see a lot of deking at the blue line from Kirill Kaprizov. If you hold on to that for another second more, and I know the NHL is a very fast game, so maybe you just don't have the time to, but just hold on to it for a half second more, another half stride, and then make your move. Because then if you do cough the puck up, you're not immediately sprinting back the other way. You have a defender there who's probably inside the zone and feels now reliable to pinch and hold possession in the offensive zone. But it's frustrating at times, but a lot of encouraging sights, I think, tonight from Kirill Kaprizov.
No Spurgeon again, and it sounds like he's not on the trip. They play in Boston tomorrow, and then it's a quick trip, come home and play Montreal on Thursday night and play host to Boston again on Saturday. No Spurgeon, no Brodin, who's out. I think what I heard was that Brodin told a kid that they were going to see in the hospital about a week ago through the grapevine, 4 to 6 weeks. So he's going to be like that. That's a month at least. And Zuccarello was a late scratch tonight, upper body. But that gives us a chance for it seems like our JHS regular Love Fest feature. Although I'm a little disappointed. Brock Faber tonight took it easy. He took the night off. He only played 28-18. What the hell's wrong with him? Oh, and here's a question, H. I got a question for you, because I watch Gopher hockey. I think that you might watch it closer than I do. How did Brock Faber not get on the power play there? And I know that Gopher team was an all-star team, but you know he is now basically by default being asked to run the power play because like Spurgeon's out, Brodin's out, blah blah blah. Okay, that should change here. I don't care who comes back. Brock Faber is on my top power play. And how did Motts go? I know he had an all-star team. How do you not have that?
That's the thing that throws me off even more. If it was Don Lucia there and like the old like tic-tac-toe, pretty passing golden goal for hockey that my dad loves to still reference at times, I understand it. But Bob Motzko, I spent 3 years at St. Cloud State covering the team, watching Bob Motzko, getting to know Bob Motzko and his strategies. He had Jimmy Schultz, Will Borgen, John Lazat manning the power play for them. The fact that Brock Faber, who fits, I think, perfectly, that is his ideal defenseman, didn't once make it onto that power play for the Gophers is insane. Because that is like if Bob Motzko, if you did like the Powerpuff Girls, you know, take a little bit of this, sprinkle in tenacity, sprinkle in iron lungs, blah blah blah.
Yep.
That is his ideal concocted defenseman, and the fact that he never threw him on the power play unit there
He's
is
unbelievable.
wild to me.
He's
Wild.
unbelievable. That shot he took, I think it was on a power play, third period from the top of the slot. Like he's right by the blue line. That shot was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, this guy, everything he does, he's good at. So, which also here, okay. So that was your once a JHS Brock Faber Love Fest update. That's off the list. Let's talk about the bottom half of this defense though. John Merrill, who did have an assist tonight. The Lettieri goal was a John Merrill shot. He plays 12-19. Goligoski plays 15-14. Hunt plays 15-52. But long story short, can they not get a kid up here? Can we not see another? I mean, I'm sorry, and I tweeted this, but watching Goligoski and John Merrill, and they weren't partners, so I'm not saying that they were, but watching them play is going to give me an ulcer, and I'm a guy with a podcast on the Wild. I can't imagine being a coach, putting yourself through that. And as the Wild third period hype man Paul tweeted me, and he's exactly right. Like with Goose, you can see it with Goose, right? Like he was pretty good, and like you can see his desire, but he can't get to the puck now. He's too slow, and it's really painful to watch at times. And yes, John Robinson, John Merrill is a cone, and that's not to denigrate these guys. Like back in the day, these guys would have had 3 to 5 years left in the 80s, but I think I'd rather just watch young defensemen try and work their way through the learning curve and who got some speed, because you could see that the brains of these guys know exactly what they're supposed to do or want to do, but their bodies just can't do it.
Yeah. First off, do you need to update like your emergency contacts? If you want, throw me in there. I'm available. We'll get you to the hospital if ever needed. Yeah.
During Wild games, I might need you. You know what? Middleton between periods had that heart rate thing on.
Yeah.
When Gorg was talking to him, I might need one to watch Wild games, because yes, I have. And look, I'm not alone. I see it. I see it on Twitter. I see it everywhere. And again, it's not to denigrate them. They're professional athletes.
Yes.
Goligoski in his prime was a damn good player. I remember that. Yeah. But yeah, it's tough, man. This game moves so fast. Once you lose that step, it's really hard. It's really, really hard to continue at a level that justifies your existence in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and that step you were talking about, it feels like some guys, I do want to say, have that ability to adapt given their circumstances, given their body.
Agreed.
Chris Letang, for instance. Yes. He's definitely not as mobile as he used to be, but God, is that guy just an engine out there, and he's smart. He knows exactly where he needs to be at all times.
Brodin will probably be like that someday.
Yes. But that extra step that you lose, it feels like there was a significant portion somewhere in like the early 2010s to where it's like, you know what? The game is faster now. Yes. And if you're not going to keep up, you got to be left behind. You could get away with that in the 2000s. You can get away with that in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s for sure. I'm sure when you grew up watching hockey as well, but like the year 2023, soon to be 24, Connor McDavid is a person. He's a player. You're playing a couple times a season, and he's going to blow past you. He's going to look like a NASCAR and you're a golf cart. Like it's crazy that we have some guys, and once again, not to make fun at, but a cone in a sense, still professional athletes, but hey, we got to have a game plan of, if you're going to be out there, you have to adjust and have some sort of a game plan to how you're going to limit the damage in some capacity.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm seeing comments about this. So let's talk about this in a bigger picture too. Marcus Johansson. Okay. Marcus Johansson, who has some points and he gets some assists, and with the guy, and I don't know if Zuccarello is going to miss 1 game, 2 games, or 2 weeks. I have no idea. It just came out. I don't know if he got hurt in practice or he got hurt against the Canucks, and then it was something they didn't talk about. But answer me this, Age. Here's my first JoJo question of the night. When they were preparing late in the game to go to 6-on-5, okay? Faber was out there as the lone defenseman, and the left defenseman was Marcus Johansson. Then when they put the extra guy on, they put Ryan Hartman on. So Marcus Johansson, and they used a timeout so that they could rest those guys. And Marcus Johansson stayed out there. Now, I know that they like his entries because he's smooth with the puck, okay? But what's he really done? Like, what difference has he made? And then I'm going to throw this one at you as the head scratcher. When they went to show the Wild bench during the timeout, when Darby Hendrickson was strategizing with the players, who's sitting to Darby's left, a non-factor, not playing, Marco Rossi? What has Marco Rossi done that Marcus Johansson, other than being younger? Where on earth do we get the idea? And this is Dean Evison, John Hines. So help me.
I don't know. I don't know.
How is this happening? How is Marcus Johansson playing? I mean, quite frankly, how's Hartman playing? But let's just talk about that. Why is Marco Rossi, again, as Paul says, our guy, Rossi or Freddie should have been out there. He is exactly right. And I'm sorry, I don't think it's Freddie. I think 23 needs to be out there in that situation again, where speed is at a premium and the kid is strong enough now that he can be out there.
And you mentioned, okay, maybe they like the zone entries of Marcus Johansson. Well, let me tell you, you know who's got that in his bag and then some? Marco Rossi, number 23. This guy has, and maybe now that I say it, you'll notice it more. It's one of those, like, you shop for something and now all of a sudden you see everybody has one of them and you thought you were special. But now you're going to notice this with Marco Rossi. He's got this, and it's not patented because a lot of guys do this, but he's got the skill set to do it where he will drive in going what looks like 90 miles an hour. And then he does this hard pivot turn, throws on the brakes. The defender that has worn down brakes squirts by, and he's got time and space to survey the guys trailing coming into the zone, feed a pass. And the thing is, he's got the pass to do it. He's got the eyesight, the vision to do it. So, you know what? There's no reason for him to be on the bench in that situation for a guy like Marcus Johansson. He's able to have the zone entry and then some. He's got the work ethic. And the thing is, he has the track record this season compared to Marcus Johansson, which that baffles me. Why are we not going off of the track record here? Because like you said, what has Marco Rossi not done that Marcus Johansson has? Nothing. He's done everything and then some. It doesn't make sense. You gave me a head scratcher, and I'm going to keep scratching my head because I don't have the answer for you. It baffles me.
There's nothing that Johansson is going to do better than Rossi. There is nothing. And at least I can, and I'm not a huge fan, but I can justify Hartman a bit more because he's going to work his ass off. Like, when Hartman's out there, he's going to work hard. Johansson is a smooth skater, but you're right. Rossi is just as good, if not better, on entries. And quite frankly, if Faber's out there, he's going to be the point guard anyway. So, like, that's what I didn't get. And are you thinking that Johansson is more defensively sound there? Because, like, I just don't get it. I'm very, very confused.
And to that point, I think if Matt Zuccarello is in the lineup tonight, he probably is in that spot rather than Johansson.
Oh, he's out there for sure.
So, like, if you're worried about, like, the defensive aspect should not be a thing because he's smaller, he's weaker, he's got a longer stick, sure. But you know, that is the ultimate head scratcher that I'm gonna lose sleep about tonight.
And I want Rossi to play in all of those situations. Like, I'm done. I'm past the point of, well, he has to learn this or that. No, develop him, play him. Like, you are being forced to play Faber. And what are you finding out? Oh, Eureka, he's really good. He can handle things we didn't necessarily think. Now, here's my question. Are you going to continue to give him those privileges, those jobs when people come back? Because you should. You know, one of the things, and this is across all sports, is not just a hockey thing. One of the things that drives me crazy is the stubbornness of coaching staffs at times and coaches or front offices and thought processes. Marco Rossi is a little bit like Ty Chandler is. Well, he can't do this yet. He can't do that. Well, no, actually, you know what? It took Alexander Madison getting hurt so he couldn't play till you finally were like, okay, I guess we got to play him a lot. Oh, and he's good. Oh, he's good. And the thing with Rossi is he worked his ass off to be like this. Like he spent the summer here. He is clearly way stronger. He was too weak. He's not now. So yes, play him. What were your thoughts on I think what was an attempted controversy, but it didn't work? The attempted controversy of Marc-Andre Fleury not getting the start in Pittsburgh and Gustavsson playing tonight instead, when this could have been, and I say this with could have been Flowers' last trip into Pittsburgh if he decides to retire after the season.
I'm a romantic in the sense for sports where I would have liked to see it. You know, is he probably going to do one of the like 1-day contracts so he can retire as a Penguin whenever that does eventually happen?
Hockey do that?
I think for a guy like that, they might make an exception. Like
okay.
Gary, yeah, I feel like they have done that because Craig Anderson, I believe, did that with the Senators.
Oh, you're right. Good call. I think you're right.
So I know for goalies, they at least make an exception there. But would I like to see it? Yes. But do I think tactically this was the right move? Yes. This taking out emotion and circumstance and looking solely at statistics and playing the hot hand, it's Gustavsson. He's been rock solid since John Hines has taken over. So I can't be mad at the decision. I know I'll allow the Pittsburgh fans and any Marc-Andre Fleury like diehards out there, and maybe Marc-Andre Fleury himself, maybe he wants to be upset about it, and I give him the full right to be.
I don't think so.
But that's the thing. He's probably going to think, you know what? That's a bummer. But 5 minutes later, hey, you know, it's fine. So, that's my take on it. Like you got to go with Gustavsson, I think, tonight, especially a team that needs points at this stage of the season already. You're playing catch up. You got to go with Gustavsson. He's been just so good since John Hines took over for Dean Evison. So that it was the right move, although emotionally, my heart maybe wanted Fleury in goal.
Yeah, I guess I can't complain, or I'm not in a position to complain because I complained about the fact that I thought that Dean bent over backwards too much for the players previously. And John Hines does not strike me as a hard ass. But if John Hines is going to say, hey, we don't want to put Flower in that predicament. We want to play the guy who is clearly John Hines' top goaltender. I'm not going to complain about it because then it would be, you know, you can't complain about Dean doing this and Dean doing that and then say, but John Hines, I was surprised at first and then I gave it some thought and I'm like, it's the right call. It's the right call. And they came back and tied it. And Gustavsson made some very, very nice saves. So, you know, this was more, in my opinion, just a team loss. And this is the type of thing that ordinarily this loss wouldn't be a big deal, but it's just that points are at a premium now. And because they fell behind so badly to start the season, you can't dismiss defeats now. That's the thing. You can't dismiss defeats. And the other thing is, while they had won 2 consecutive games at home against the Flames and Canucks, both of those games went to shootouts. So you're giving up a Western Conference point there, which is not ideal. Mm-hmm. Like Calgary is close enough to you that you just want your 2 points and you want to blank them. But I thought that was among John Hines' moves today. I thought that was actually probably a good move. But
and I would say that gives me more confidence in him in the long run, don't you think?
Oh yeah, it does for me. But these guys starting tomorrow in Boston, you got to stay out of the penalty box, man. You'll be swept in this 2-game trip if you don't find a way to just be disciplined. And nothing drives fans and coaches crazier than offensive zone penalties. Like, there's no justification for him. You're doing nothing that's going to be constructive by getting a penalty. At least,
Yeah.
A defensive zone, it might be a save a goal. It might be a play that's necessary. I don't know. But an offensive zone penalty is absolutely atrocious. And they have taken way too many of those in this 11 or 12 game stretch.
Yeah. And like you said, when it comes to offensive zone penalties, you're literally in the part of the game where you're trying to score. There, like, you are attempting to play offense. What are you doing there that is in your mind justifying holding a stick, tripping somebody, hooking somebody? It's the discipline, I think, is something that really needs to be assessed. And tomorrow, I mean, I'm nervous. David Pastrnak
needed tonight's game, in my opinion.
Yeah, that would have been a nice morale boost. But I think going into TD Garden tomorrow, a team that's now captained by Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak is going to. I'll tell you right now, he's scoring twice. Pastrnak is scoring twice.
Charlie Coyle might get you too, because he finally developed. Now the infrastructure in Boston superior to here.
Yeah.
So it's not a complete shock, but yes. I see a comment from Let's Get It. The Wild were missing $19 million from the roster tonight, not including the cap buyouts because of, as we talked about, Brodin's out, Spurgeon's out, Zuccarello's out. And yes, that is a very good point. But here's the thing. We just talked about things that were preventable. Those guys being out has nothing to do with penalties. You took penalties that you didn't need to take. Those guys being out had nothing to do with Johansson playing in the 6-on-5, because yes, Zuccarello would have played, but this should have kicked Rossi up. So there's very little about tonight's loss that to me directly led to the defeat. The two defensemen being out certainly hurts, and it would be nice to have Goligoski or Merrill scratched, but every team, dude, you got guys hurt. And you could have, and there were things that you easily could have done to prevent tonight's loss. So I don't know that that's the entire excuse.
Yeah. And I had a brief conversation with somebody on Twitter about this, where these guys are professionals. So you should understand fairly early in the game. And plus, you see these refs more than enough throughout the season to where you have an idea of what their leniency is or is not. You should be able to adjust somewhat on the fly to, this guy's a little stricter. This guy's going to let the play a little bit go. Maybe I can get away with holding on for that extra second or two along the half wall and kick the puck loose instead of having to immediately come off and create separation. So this team showed, even missing that $19 million, they could play. They tied the game up. They were in control of this game at one point. They had the momentum in their favor, but it was the penalties that were just so costly that, it happened earlier in the game, that it happened right after you tie the game, that you go on the penalty kill and boom, game winner, eventual game winner, I should say, a power play goal by Sidney Crosby. So
yeah, that Kaprizov high stick was a killer for sure. All right, Age, great stuff. We are done. JHS will be back on Wednesday. Declan, Jesse Pierce, and yours truly will be recapping the game in Boston that the Wild's going to play tomorrow night. And then, of course, they're going to come back and play Montreal and Boston here at the X. So plenty to talk about then. AJ, great stuff. Subscribe to all of the good stuff that Score North provides, and we will see you soon.